flag will travel. Okay, I'm going to introduce now Whitney Neal. I want to tell you how incredibly important it is for you to be here tonight, and I thank you for taking your time to do it. We actually should have this room packed with people, and they should be lined up down the highway. We have too many people that are really comfortable because they believe, since we have all statewide officials have an R after their name, that we're safe. And I won't get into that tonight. You know how I feel about that. I'm going to tell you what, we need to have citizens engaged and involved in understanding this. Texas has a history of extremely low voter turnout. Sometimes we are 47, 48, and have been 49 in the nation for voter turnout. That means we have a bunch of Texans that talk big, but they don't fight for liberty. We're in a day when we have to fight, and there should be no backing up, no backing down, and as Ted Cruz said the other night, don't blink. That's what this is about. This is about helping people understand how we engage our neighbors and friends and colleagues and get them up off of the couch and help us protect Texas from the left. The left has moved into Texas. We had some that were just native residents. They're alive and well in the Austin area. And I got to see a lot of the nastiest ones, and I mean that, during the debate, the pro-life debate in the Capitol. We had a lot of people from the left that came down from Occupy. The Occupy movement was there. And they mean to take Texas and make Texas look like California. And as the only native Texan in my family, I'm just not interested in that. And so here's what we have to do. We have to learn how to be effective activists for liberty. And Whitney's going to talk to us about that. Then later on, we'll start talking about how you get the right kind of information so that you can make a wise decision about your elected officials. We have too many people who don't vote in primaries. They wait and they let George and Jane and somebody else pick who's going to win a primary. And in many parts of the state, particularly in our area, you have to run as an R. So we've got a bunch of Democrats and liberals and progressives and liberal Republicans that run in a primary, and they run as conservatives. And there are no such thing. We can't afford them anymore, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot afford them anymore. So you're in for a treat. Whitney Neal has lots of energy, and she better, because she's been traveling the state for the last several days, doing this same thing all over the state. And she's going to introduce your leadership team to you. If you have your cell phones, please turn them off. And y'all give Whitney Neal a great big Tyler welcome, please.
Can y'all hear me? All right. Here we go. Okay, well, hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. Like JoAnn said, I've been traveling the state. I started in Dallas last Saturday. That sounded normal yet? Last Saturday, where we did a cardboard corn in town hall, and we had a come and take it rally. And then I've been all over the state. I woke up this morning in Houston, did a lunch meeting in Waco, stopped in Dallas, and found my way here by 6:15ish. So the highway has been burning, but people are excited to hear about Come and Take It and about what we can do to stop progressives from trying to take over Texas. I am a Texan. I'm actually from Flower Mound, so if you're familiar with the Dallas area, it's just north of Dallas and Fort Worth, north of the airport. And I worked really hard with Grassroots last few years and helped get Ted Cruz elected with these lovely ladies. And I was picked up by FreedomWorks last fall and moved to D.C. Once I got there, everyone was asking me, what's going on in Texas? And right after the election, the Obama campaign announced that they were moving their top guys to Austin and that their target for 2016 was Texas, because they felt confident that they could turn Texas purple and blue. And that's because of a place called Colorado. How many of you guys are familiar with what happened in Colorado from 2004 to 2008? Okay, good. good. That's awesome. You're actually the most educated crowd in Colorado. That's great. So basically, if you look at Colorado pre-2004, they were very much like Texas. Everybody had an R after their name. They had a Republican governor, Republican state house. Their federal delegation was all Republican. They were very red. And things were safe for their elected officials. They didn't feel like they had to be accountable to the grassroots, to the voting base. And so they started to turn on some promises that they had made to the voters there, like turning their backs on the Taxpayer Bill of Rights in Colorado. Just kind of like raiding the rainy day fund here in Texas. Okay, turning their backs on promises that they've made to the voters. So between 2004 and 2008, the elected officials lost some excitement in the voters. And the left sensed that, and they picked up excitement. They had been growing young candidates through the state. So by 2008, in 4 short years, they turned Colorado from a solidly red state into a purple, pretty much blue state, and to now a solidly blue state for the Democrats. If you've read this book, it's called The Blueprint, How the Democrats Won Colorado. Has anybody read that? Okay, so you should read it. If you live in Texas, you should read The Blueprint. I think it's like $4.95 on Amazon.com. It's a quick read, but it's a very informative, very important read, because it details exactly what the left did in Colorado and exactly what the Republicans weren't doing to stop the problem there. And we see, from FreedomWorks' perspective, and with a lot of the activists that we work with, the same kinds of things that were happening on the ground in Colorado in 2004 are happening on the ground here in Texas now. Because there's faces that are very popular with the left. You've got Wendy Davis, you've got the Castro brothers, you've got them rallying some excitement behind these faces. And as JoAnn mentioned, we are a very, very low voter turnout state. In the last opportunity to vote for governor, only 18% of those who were eligible to show up for voting for Perry showed up to vote. 18%. That means that the other side, they don't have to do much work to beat us at the polls. They just have to turn out a very excited, very motivated base, like we saw in 2012 with early voting for President Obama, and they will be able to take a lot of seats here in Texas. And the really important thing to remember is that those local races, those down ballot races, are going to be highly affected by this movement. Your city councils, your county commissioners, and your state house races are going to be very affected by this motivated base on the left. And so we see Colorado as a blue state, and we don't want to see Texas as a purple or a blue state. One of the things that Battleground Texas has really keyed in on is obviously the Latino vote. And they look at 2 key numbers that you'll see here in the bottom left-hand side. That is the eligible unregistered Latino voters and the future Latino voters categories. Those are growing categories. And you'll see in a video in just a moment by Jeremy Bird him explain why those numbers are very important to their movement. But it's not just Latino voters that they're targeting. They're targeting younger voters, female voters, and they're doing it with a very clear and concise message. So far, since April, if you see a blue dot on this map, that is where they have set up an office or they've had a wide-scale field event. Okay? Since April, they have trained and deputized more than 1,800 volunteers to register voters throughout the state of Texas for Battleground Texas. 1,800. How many of you guys in this room are deputized to register voters? Okay? Well, that's awesome. Good. But we should all be getting out and doing that and figuring out how we can register voters and get engaged so we can fight that on the ground. They've made more than 15,000 phone calls across the state of Texas to people who identify as a potential Democratic voter. And when they call these guys, they're not just saying, hey, can you volunteer with us? They're asking them to share information on anyone else in Texas that they know that might be a potential Democrat voter. Remember, Texas, 60% of our population are non-native Texans. So they've come from places like California and Florida and New York and Illinois. So as they move to Texas, they're bringing those values with them. And I think we all know that we don't want to look like California, and we don't want our value systems to be what they have in their state house right now. So they're able to get information on all of these new people coming, potential volunteers. Perhaps the most frightening thing to think about is that this week and next week, as college students go back to school, Battleground Texas has hired 200 college students across the state. So every single university in Texas, there are college students being paid to represent Battleground Texas on the ground. They were trained all summer in their summer leadership program. These guys know how to register voters. They'll set up shop in the Student Services Center. They'll be at football tailgates. They'll be at sorority parties, at fraternity parties. These guys are active and ready to be involved on every college campus in Texas. So we're a little bit behind when it comes to this stuff, and we have a lot of work together to catch up and to fight this system. A little background on who Battleground Texas is. Are you guys familiar with a man named Steve Mostyn? Has anybody heard of Steve? Okay, so he's got a lot of money. He's a lawyer in Houston. He's the #1 Democrat donor in the state of Texas. Last cycle, he and his wife donated $25 million to Democrat candidates within Texas and around the country. In 2013 alone, Steve has promised Battleground Texas $10 million. So by the end of this year, he will personally have ensured they have $10 million in the bank just to spend on these efforts. In addition to that, and something you really should pay close attention to, it's the grassroots donors. They've raised more than $1 million online and in person from grassroots Texans. 80% of their donors are from right here within Texas. So this isn't California stepping in to fund this. This isn't New York stepping in to fund this. This is Democrats and progressives on the ground here in Texas, excited about something and willing to donate their time and money. Jeremy Byrd is the leader of the group here in Texas. Jeremy was the field director for the 2012 Obama campaign. So he's the mastermind that got that ground game going, got these volunteers hired, and he is very excited, as you'll see in a video in just a minute, to be here in Texas. This isn't a short-term plan for Jeremy. He plans to be here for at least 8 years. He moved his wife and his children to Austin and has set up shop, and he doesn't plan to leave until Texas is a blue state. That's really important because obviously he was highly effective getting the vote out for Obama nationwide. He has a very narrow focus here in Texas to do the exact same thing, and he brought a lot of friends along with him. Jen Brown was the field director in the state of Ohio. She obviously was very successful in turning out the vote for the left in Ohio. They also brought their national youth outreach director to Texas. So the Democrats have given up their national top guns to come right here to Texas and make Texas a battleground. They have picked Texas as a battleground for 2014 and 2016. And I know from experience that this sounds a little like, oh my gosh, there's not a chance. I think we've heard some of our elected officials call it a pipe dream. There's just no chance that they could come in Texas and do this. Well, they're willing to do it. They're excited to do it. And last week before I left, I flew to Texas on Friday. On Thursday, I got a call from a producer. And he said, can I come meet with you? And I was like, okay, I'm in a hurry. Turns out, have y'all heard of the documentary Freakonomics? Have you heard of that? Okay, so it was the producer of Freakonomics, HBO, big, world-famous documentary. He says, we want to make a documentary about Texas. We just want to warn you. We're going to do a documentary about battleground Texas versus the grassroots Republicans, the grassroots conservatives. And we're going to start in January, and we're going to start filming this thing. And we're going to see what happens. Because the left, and obviously we know HBO and these groups, they're not rooting for us. Okay? They want to watch us get our little booties kicked. And they're very confident it can happen if they're going to spend the money to film a documentary. They want the first one to run January through November to film for the governor's race, because we know who plans to announce in a few weeks, right? Wendy Davis. So they want to see what happens with her active on the ground, rallying the left, versus us, hopefully turning out at least our 18% vote, right? On the right. And then carry it on into 2016, because in their mind, they're going to film and watch Texas beat Colorado. And they're going to watch Texas turn into a purple or blue state by 16. Now that is really scary for me, because if I know that they're coming in and they're willing to expend those resources and they want to watch me lose, that doesn't make me very happy. So it's very motivating though. We should be all fired up and motivated that they're going to give Texas that much attention, because we know from electing Ted Cruz and from looking around the room that we're fighters, we're freedom lovers, we're excited people. We can get out the vote, but we can kick their little tails right back out of Texas. All right? So thank you. You guys have heard me say a lot about what Battleground Texas plans to do, how much money they have, what they've been up to, but I think it's important that you hear it straight from the horse's mouth. And on YouTube, Jeremy Byrd has a video from the first day that they launched Battleground Texas here, and it kind of explains what their game plan is. So if we can switch to the video. If you press escape, I think, and then it'll, there we go. Perfect.
Hey everybody, my name is Jeremy Byrd. Many of you might remember me as the National Field Director for Obama's re-election campaign. I wanted to speak to you quickly about an exciting new movement that launched this week. It's called Battleground Texas. It's an exciting new movement to help turn Texas into a battleground state. As we saw in 2012, America is changing. Last November, Barack Obama received record support from key minority communities, and as the campaign's field director, I saw firsthand how our work to expand the electorate and bring groups from all walks of life into the democratic process literally changed the face of politics in this country. And after our successes in expanding the electorate and engaging a historic grassroots effort, the question many of you out there might be asking is, where do we go from here? Well, one of the answers to that is Texas, a state at a political crossroads. With its size and its diversity, Texas has the potential to be a leading state, a state that sets the tone on the policy issues of our day, as well as serving as an economic driver for the nation. And with 38 electoral votes at stake, Texas could virtually remake the presidential campaign map. But the current political landscape in the state is keeping Texas and its residents from meeting its promise and being relevant at a national level. That's why we started this movement called Battleground Texas. It's united by the basic belief that when our values are represented by our elected leaders, we all win. That's why over the next several years, in every single community, in every single neighborhood, our team of volunteers and organizers will be knocking on doors, registering voters, and engaging Texans to make sure that they not only turn out to vote on Election Day, but they become more politically active in the day-to-day electoral process. We know how to get this done. You know how to get this done. Together, we pioneered the neighborhood team organizing model, an approach which transformed organizing in presidential politics by merging a people-focused community organizing with new digital technology and cutting-edge data analytics. That blueprint helped us win even the toughest battles in 2008 and 2012, in places like Virginia, where we went into reliably red turf and turned it into a battleground. That is exactly what we're going to do in Texas. Let me share some information with you about why this is even possible. Check this out. In Texas, Latino support for Democrats has been on the rise. In 2012, President Obama received over 70% of support from Latino voters. 70%. That's extraordinary. Couple that with this. Texas has the second largest share of Latino eligible voters nationwide. As you can see, most of what you see here are blue states. Yet while the percentage of Latinos in Texas is the second highest in the nation, too many of those folks aren't currently engaged in the political process. When only 54% of Latinos are registered and only 35% turn out on Election Day, this leads to a government for half the people, by half the people, not a government representing all Texans. We must and we will change that. And it's not just Latinos. Get this. In Texas, fully 56% of the state's population is Latino, Asian American, African American, or another minority group that overwhelmingly supported the president. Yet we're not seeing anything close to that kind of diversity reflected in the people who represent Texans in public office. But there's more. At the same time, while we've been working hard to engage women voters in Texas, women voters in the Lone Star State supported Obama by just 47% in 2008, far fewer than the 55% nationwide that supported the president in both 2008 and 2012. We can and we will do much better than that. Look, we know change in Texas won't happen overnight. We know that turning a state like Texas into a battleground will take a long-term strategy and a sustained push from grassroots activists. But grassroots voices are already changing this country on a scale that was unheard of just a few years ago. And that kind of organization, that kind of local activism can also and will also change Texas. Now is the time to act. Texas is ready. We're ready. You're ready. And together we will make Texas count. Thanks for listening. Now let's get the job done.
How do y'all like Jeremy Byrd? I don't like him that much either. But he's really good at what he does. And that's the message that they're sending out across Texas and around this country. But we got to give a shout out to Texas women though, right? For voting like way lower than the national average for Obama. Way to go, Texas women. So Jeremy says that they're going to take their community model, their neighborhood model, they're going to go door to door, and they have been. That video came out in February. Since February, all those things that I told you have happened with the phone calls and the volunteers and the voter registration, but they've been busy in the Valley and in West Texas. They've been getting out teaching people in those communities how to run for school board, how to run for city council, how to run for county commissioner, how to get involved at the local level. They've been doing a lot of outreach at the local level, convincing these guys to start get their names out in the communities and to get active and engaged. We have to do the same thing, all right? So FreedomWorks, obviously we're aware of what's happening with Battleground Texas, and our activists started coming to us and saying, what can we do? Well, FreedomWorks, we're here to help. We want to give some suggestions, but the most important people in this battle is going to be you on the ground. Texans who care about each other, who are willing to get out of their comfort zone a little bit, go try something new, meet some new friends, and get involved at the local level. So if you see a hot pink dot, that's me. That's where I've been this week, or I will be back in 2 weeks to go to those places. I'm trying to hit all the blue dots at least once before they get too far ahead of us. So I've been in those places. And I've been talking to people about our community and what we can offer you guys to use as resources. So one of the most interesting things that FreedomWorks can do is give you use of our national network. Because the reality is that everybody in this country cares about what happens in Texas. I travel all over. I'll be in South Carolina on Tuesday doing a big rally to get rid of Lindsey Graham. Every time I go, one of our activists, we've been sending cardboard cutouts for these guys that aren't doing town halls, and one of our activists showed us a cardboard Lindsey who's behind her bar at her house, and she was like, look, I finally put the guy to work, he's doing something. So cardboard Lindsey will be there with us, but every time I go places, they tell me what's going to happen to Texas, because they know that if they're successful in turning Texas purple to blue, it means very, very bad things for the rest of the country, and they don't want to see that happen here. And so I hear people, I'll come to Texas, I'll help. People around, conservatives in the country, they're not a big fan of Whitney Davis. They don't want to see her as the Texas governor. So they're willing to help. Our network is very active and engaged with what's going on in Texas. So as you can see, we have a lot of fans on Facebook and a lot of use of social media. We want to dedicate that and a lot of those resources to helping you guys spread the message. And the interesting thing is, there we go. When we post something to our page or we tweet something, it actually reaches a lot of people. One post on our Facebook page can reach 18 million people 10 times a month. It's a lot of people hearing our message. A lot of people who maybe can donate to your groups, who can get active and volunteer with your groups, who can call friends and family members that live in Texas and tell them what's going on and encourage them to show up or to get out and vote. Our community is also more female than the national GOP. So again, girls are smart and they love freedom. So we're lucky we reach a little bit more of the female population than most of the other groups. And we're a younger population. Actually, most of our staff is under 30 in our office. And we're all, we don't sleep and we do this. Like I said, I've been on the road for like 9 days, living out of a suitcase. But we love this. This is what we do. And so we want to dedicate all of our resources to helping Texas because it's very important to us. We have 220,000 members here in Texas. So that's a lot of actual Texans that will also hear our message and hopefully join you guys on the ground. We do things, you guys, I know you live stream and you put things online as well. We use our live events to connect various groups across the state. This has been most successful in Alaska. In Alaska, they're trying to get rid of Senator Begich. Y'all familiar with Senator Begich? Yeah, we want to get rid of him. So our activists in Alaska, it's a big state. They have transportation issues, they have terrain and weather, and it's crazy. In some places, you can only get there by boat. So we've united the groups in Alaska through live events. And so they do monthly meetings online with the entire state. All the different conservative and 9/12 and Tea Party groups, they Skype in so they can see each other, they can talk to each other, and they can share plans. They've been talking about which primary candidates are the best and setting up debates, all of those things online from the comfort of their own homes. And that's something, Texas is a big state. It takes a long time to get to El Paso. Actually, no, because they wanted me to drive there. And I was like, no. I'll drive a lot of places, but El Paso's not happening. And so we want to give that as a resource to anyone who wants to use it. It's very, very easy. You can do it from an iPhone through the Ustream app. It goes right here in the back of a room, and then you guys can be live and online with the rest of Texas. I'll skip these. And then we're also working on something called Atlas, which is going to be a new door-to-door program. We all know that prior to Election Day in 2012, we had heard that Project Orca was going to be the system to battle the left, and we were going to have the best data and the best voter turnout program. We were going to kick Obama's booty. And what happened on Election Day? It failed miserably. The whole system collapsed. Well, we don't want that to happen. So we've been working with other groups. We've been working with Catherine Engelbrecht at True the Vote. We've talked to Jenny Beth Martin. We've talked to a lot of other people. We're pooling resources to build Atlas. We want this to be a resource for all conservatives to have access to go door to door. Something that we share, something that is free, that groups don't have to pay to use. something that we give and take information from. It also pulls in all of the stuff we get from social media. So those 4.25 million fans we have on Facebook, when they like something, it tells Atlas that they like school choice, or that they can't stand Obamacare, or that they love Ron Paul, or that they love, somebody else. That all will feed into the system as well. So when you're going door to door, you may know some of those details and can build better relationships with people, just like the left has. Now, this isn't NSA style. We're not going to tap into your phone calls and listen to what you have to say. But it is public information that you guys already put out there. So we're hoping that that'll help you as you go door to door. But all that aside, none of this matters and none of this works if we can't do a couple very specific things. Number one, we have to get candidates that Texans are excited to get out the vote for. How many of you guys look at what happened this legislative in Austin and just go to sleep and be like, I'm so proud of these guys, they're so great. That legislative session was the best ever. Anybody? Okay, I didn't think so. Me either. It's embarrassing. I'm sitting in DC watching the hearings, live on my computer, and I'm like, what is happening? We've got to get rid of those people that are blocking true conservative legislation from passing the House in Texas, passing the Senate in Texas. Those guys who are sold out to all of the special interest groups. Those guys who care more about Pearson education and the lobbyists in their back pocket than they do about the voters in Texas. We will not turn out the vote if we are not as excited about our candidates as the left is going to be about theirs. And we know it's coming. Like I said, Whitney Davis is supposed to announce running for governor on Labor Day. And the rumors we hear in D.C. is that Hillary Clinton will be coming here to make the announcement with her and to bring national level support for her in Texas. And the reality is Hillary is very popular here. There are a lot of people across the state that like her and listen to her and donate to their campaigns. There's a big donor base for the Clintons here. They have a lot of friends. So once that starts and the media picks it up and these guys get excited and they start doing a Wendy Davis bus tour, we've got to have something to combat that with. We have to have excited voters. So we're going to have to do our work to primary some of these guys. Don't be so scared. Don't be so scared to primary them. It's tough. But we did it with Ted, or we beat Dewhurst, so it's okay. We've got to do that. The second thing we have to do is get out of our comfort zones and start talking to people and listening to people that maybe we haven't normally listened to. This is a great group of people, but if there's not a ton of diversity here, right? We've got to get out and do some things a little bit differently. That doesn't mean you change your values or your principles, but you start talking about freedom and limited government and economic responsibility and fiscal responsibility to people like Latino voters or younger voters, and they listen and they respond. We know it because we see it around the country. In 2008, Obama started a barbershop program where he hired people and their sole purpose was to sit in barbershops in Cleveland, Ohio and talk to people and become their friend and never talk politics until maybe a couple months before Election Day. So for years, this guy is just sitting in the barbershop paid to be friends with people, and then he starts talking politics, and then he starts getting them to go register to vote, and they're his friend, and they're going to follow him, and they're going to listen to what he votes for. Happened all over the country, not just in barbershops, but at car washes and everywhere else. Now, I'm not saying that we have to do that and go sit in a barbershop all day, but I'm saying we need to branch out into other communities and other neighborhoods and go door to door and meet people and build those trusting relationships with your friends and neighbors so that one day when there is an issue of importance that comes up or a candidate you're excited about, you can start that conversation and they're going to listen to you as Mary, my friend, not Mary, that crazy lady with a snake flag in her yard, right? I mean, that's the reality. That's how some people see us, okay? We know that the media is going to keep that portrayal of us out there. They need to see us as human beings that love freedom, love being Americans, and have a vested interest in one another. In Dallas County recently, they did a picnic. They went to South Oak Cliff, and the county GOP actually did it. They went down there, and it was a non-political event. There were kids everywhere. The neighbors came out. They mingled with one another. They played baseball. It was completely non-political. But it started really good conversations, opportunities for mentoring, opportunities to come back down, maybe paint a church, get involved in these other communities, and that will start those important conversations. Because once people trust you, they're willing to listen to you and your message. College outreach is obviously going to be very important. We've got a group of leaders across the state that are helping us organize, come and take it, and organize volunteers. And a lot of those people are on college campuses. We've met with the college Republicans at UT Austin. Last night I had a great conversation with the guys from the University of Houston. And so we're trying to plug in our people on college campuses as well. But once they get plugged in, they need to start coming to your meetings. And when they come, the important thing is that you listen. Don't invite them and then have them sit in the back and kind of scoff at what they have to say. Because the reality is with things like Obamacare, it is your college students and your under 30s that are going to bear the heaviest brunt of paying for Obamacare. And these guys have a vested interest in making sure that our country turns itself around and that Texas turns itself around. So listen to what they have to say. Give them opportunities maybe to run for precinct chair or run for city council. Encourage them to help with school board elections. Get them involved locally. Because the more we listen to one another, I think the more we realize that our message of freedom and liberty and personal responsibility, it resonates with everybody. So with that, I know Stacy and Resa, where did Joe go? I think there you are. Okay. You come back up here. So you guys have some great ladies that have volunteered to help us with that right here in East Texas. You have JoAnn. Obviously, you guys know JoAnn. And you have Stacy and Resa. And they're going to be coordinating a lot of great events coming up. The weekend of October 4th through the 6th, the first weekend in October, our staff is actually going to come to Texas from DC, and we're launching a weekend of action. And every group, every place I've been to, they've been really excited about it. Because we want it to be a community-based weekend, where you guys get out and do something, whether it's rebuild a playground, have a neighborhood barbecue, have a football tailgate, whatever it is have something, get out there and talk to your friends and neighbors, get to know them, pass out some information, talk to them about different things. And build networks of people that you invite to your next meeting or your next gathering so that they can become involved. We want to have a little launch party on Friday night, have action on Saturday, and then a recap on Sunday morning where we actually use our live events and have everybody in from around the state talking about how it went and give suggestions and plans for the next events down the road. But this doesn't work if we're not reaching out and community building, because that's what they're going to be doing. They're going to be community building whether we like it or not. They're going to be going places, new places, reaching out to new people, and we have to do the same thing. So at the end of the day, we're all Texans, and the future of Texas is important to all of us, and it's especially important to me. So don't fail me, guys. All right, pressure. So I don't know if you have any questions for me at this point, but you know, I'm a little, I'm driving, like I said, I started this morning in Houston and then Waco and then here, so I have no idea if I've even said what all I was supposed to say. It's like all playing back in my head from this week. So if I missed something important, I apologize. But I can give you my contact information. You know these ladies. There's tons of materials in the back of the room. There are brochures, there are palm cards, there's rally signs, there's whatever you want. If you run out, I'll send you more stuff. We're going to have all sorts of things when we come back in October for you guys to hand out and use. But we're really excited to help you. And we want to know what you need from us to keep helping you. But again, it's more important that you guys organize locally. And you guys do this in your communities and you reach out and go new places. Do y'all want to say anything? No? No. Stacy does not want to say anything right now.
Got a question?
Yes.
I'm wondering about this new voter ID law.
Yes.
How much of an effect do you think that will have in this next election?
It just depends on how this lawsuit goes, I guess, and if they're able to put a stop to it.
Like outside of that lawsuit, if we can still have a voter ID law.
Do you want me to be perfectly honest? And I'm not an expert on it, but I see it being blocked before it can ever go into place for the next election.
But if it was not,
But I think it may have an impact, you know? I think it may have a real impact. We know why we passed it as a law, right? So, but I don't see it. They're pretty hardcore against it. So. And then we have to remember that their mentality or their message on this is going to be, we want to suppress the vote. You know, we want to do all this, and that plays right into the hands of Battleground Texas. The more we use that as a message point when we're doing these community events, it's probably not a good idea. You know, build trusting relationships with these guys, but I wouldn't go out there and say, oh, by the way, voter ID is the first thing you open up that conversation with. Because it really does play right into their hands.
Yes, do you have the libertarian candidates support as well, or just Republican Party?
FreedomWorks, we support whoever is the most fiscally responsible limited government candidate out there in a race. So we don't, it's really an R by any means to support. In fact, a lot of times we find ourselves more frustrated with the R's than we are, you know. And honestly, Matt has publicly said, and he actually said this in Texas Monthly, if he found a Democrat that was willing to commit to our principles of, I'm not going to raise taxes, I'm going to do this and this, he may endorse them over a Republican. Because it's more important that you are principled than what letter you have next to your name.
Amen.
Yeah. And that's been a big problem for us, because you go to the State House in Austin and you got a lot of people with R's next to their names and they don't behave like Republicans or like we're supposed to. And that's very confusing for people.
Could you repeat the question so everyone can hear the question?
Oh yeah, he asked if we support Libertarian or other candidates or just Republicans. And so the answer was we support the most principled conservative in the race. Yes?
How many do you have on how many college campuses actually have active political groups? Like, you said the Democrats are already on 200 campuses in Texas. How are we doing in that area?
So there are student groups at at every university on both sides. So there'll be like college Democrats, college Republicans, there's young conservatives, young Americans for Liberty, Students for Liberty, lots of different groups on every campus. The difference is they have paid employees that are now infiltrating those groups and making them stronger and more active and bringing people to those groups. Whereas we, obviously FreedomWorks, we don't have paid college students on every campus. So we're relying on you guys and volunteers to help take the place of those people on the campuses. We have great relationships nationwide with Young Americans for Liberty, who were the gold sponsor of their national tour last year. We're reaching out to all sorts of groups. And we hope to, our next plan, at least the plan that I'm proposing to Kibby when I go back, is actually a statewide college tour, where I've done this week where I've met with you guys. Once I finish those stops, I actually want to go back to every single college campus in Texas and have a meeting like this, but have it with the students and the community members.
We need to raise money to have paid
Repeat the question.
She wants to know if we need to raise money as a movement to have paid employees on the campuses. I'm a big believer that we can do this voluntarily, that people believe in this enough that they're willing to get out and do it as volunteers. I don't know that paying someone $19 an hour is the answer. I think we have a strong enough message and a strong enough, passion and will to do this. We don't have to do that. It's more reaching out, giving people opportunities to get active and listening to them, and giving them the respect that they deserve, especially at the college level.
I'm coming with mine.
Thank you.
Have you considered encouraging a campaign for somebody to put an article in every paper in Texas about the fact that there would probably be 25 things that you have to do to have a voter ID, and publicize that and express in clear language
why we ought to have a voter ID and convince the people of Texas that this is necessary?
Well, that's not part necessarily of the Come and Take It campaign that we're doing, but I encourage anybody. You guys can put op-eds in any paper and encourage the media to support those things. But for this particular campaign, no, that's not a part of it. Other questions? Yes?
I've got one back here.
Okay.
I'm passing the mic.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Good evening, and thank you for coming. My question is in regards to FreedomWorks and all the tools that you have available to you. I really like the streaming tool, and thank you for allowing us to have access to that. I hopped on that during the Man in the Moon event recently, and enjoyed seeing all the comments from Texas. But my question for you is, with the younger audiences, they're great into social media, and as FreedomWorks, what kind of tools like Freedom Connector do you have access to and that you can explain? I think many people don't realize what kind of tools there are like that, and I'd like for you to explain a little bit of those.
That's a great question. Thank you. So we actively use Facebook and Twitter, obviously, to get our messages out. We have our email list that we use. We have the live events. We have our Action Center online. And I didn't explain our Action Center, but our Action Center is actually where recently we shut down John Cornyn's phone lines over taking his name off of the Lee letter to defund Obamacare. We started a petition that in 24 hours had 63,000 signatures telling Congress that we weren't happy they were exempt from Obamacare. But that's something that we also want to make available to people here in Texas to use as our Action Center. It sends phone calls or emails directly to your elected officials on any issue of importance. And then we have Freedom Connector, which Freedom Connector is our kind of freedom version of Facebook. It's more private. And it's a way for you, there's a map, you can go see other people on Freedom Connector in your area, you can post events, you can RSVP for events, you can share articles, but it's all FreedomWorks based, and that's going to be how we're organizing the October Weekend of Action, posting all the events on there so people who weren't at this meeting or who maybe don't know you but want to come to one of the outreach events can find the event online and go and show up. It's a great way to connect. Actually, I know Texas doesn't have Common Core, but I speak nationally on Common Core. And we have actually linked people from California to Wisconsin fighting Common Core through Freedom Connector. So all they had to go in is look at the Freedom Connector Common Core map, and they were finding all the other people around the country who were fighting Common Core with them, sharing resources, planning events, and connecting. And that's a great resource for Texas, especially for these things like the Weekend of Action.
Just one more question.
Yeah.
I'd like you to elaborate a little more on this atlas and the mapping. We've tried to do this in the past, not just with whatever the Republican Party was doing, but locally, and it just seemed too cumbersome for anybody to use. And from what you're saying, you've got a lot of mapping.
Yes.
FreedomWorks people so we can connect, but what about the voters?
So Atlas is actually separate from Freedom Connector. I mean, the Freedom Connector information may feed into Atlas, but Atlas is a get out the vote, door-to-door campaign. But it's also got a social media component. It's got all those things built into one. So basically, if you guys decided to use Atlas and you wanted to go door-to-door, you could go pull up the map where you're going. You could give all your responses right there from your smartphone. If you didn't want to do it by smartphone, you can print it out from your computer at home and carry paper ballots around, and then go back home and enter the information. Excuse me, I've been talking all day. Enter the information in online, and then it feeds back into our system. Manually updates overnight, so we have a continuously updated system of voter information and voter data. And so then it would tell us, like, it may tell, let's say 5 of you are working in the same neighborhood, right? And you went on Sunday, and you were really pushing for people not to pass a water bill, right? A water tax. It would tell that you touched that voter on Saturday, so the next person who logged in the system isn't calling that person or knocking on their door the very next day, which is something we ran into this last election cycle. People were getting like 10, 15, 20 phone calls because all the systems weren't speaking to one another, they weren't updating. Our system, we're working with, like I said, Catherine, with other groups, so that they all talk to one another, and that information feeds each other so we don't run into those problems. So we're trying to make it a more friendly door-to-door application.
So can we access that tonight?
You cannot access Atlas tonight. My hope is that I have the beta version for you that first weekend in October. It's still being developed and tested, and we want to make sure before we send anything out that we have safeguards on also the private information that backs up Atlas, so there's nobody able to access that stuff. We don't want to be like the next NSA. So.
I just have one more question. It's about the Latino vote.
Yes.
Because I do teach ESL, and so I work with people that are attempting to learn English. But do you on your staff have people that are Latino that will help us with kind of outreaching in that community? Because I just think that's important if we have people that other people can relate to.
That's a great question. You know, we do. And it's not just Latino outreach. We're doing a lot of Asian American outreach and Black outreach as well into communities. And we have a program called Empower. You guys are familiar with Deneen Borelli, with C.L. Bryant. They're on staff with us. We also have a volunteer Latino outreach coordinator, Melissa Salas-Blair, from right here in Texas. And she's putting together a layered outreach program for statewide access for everybody who volunteers with us. She's going to be able to travel the state and train you just like I was here today. She'll be able to do an outreach training. Deneen's going to be here in Texas doing some Black outreach training. There's lots of opportunities here in Texas to reach out to multiple communities, but the most important thing is we're all Texans, and I think we have to remember that at the end of the day, we're all Texans, we all love freedom, we all love the concept of personal responsibility, and that needs to be the overarching message. We don't want to pander to anybody. We want to make sure that we're talking person to person, Texan to Texan, and that's the focus of Come and Take It. Yes?
I guess it's on. Anyway, I was curious as to what the demographics of the groups that you've been speaking to. If you look at this audience here, there's not a whole lot of young folks. And I'm wondering, are you reaching out to the college campuses? Because the young folks are going to be key. Because they're mainly the ones who don't vote. And I'm wondering what we're doing to reaching out to these college or university students who have been undergoing liberal training for the last 12 years.
So we, youth outreach, like I said, is a big part. I'm echoing here. Oh, hello. I hear myself 3 times. We have a big college outreach program, a youth outreach program. These guys are actually really active. Everybody we work with, but most of the young people we work with are extremely active. They voted, they were involved. A lot of times they became disenfranchised last summer, maybe because of things that happened at the state convention or the national convention, and that's why there's the perception out there that they don't vote. These guys are actually very aware, very active, and very involved. There's a growing young movement here in Texas of conservatives who want to be more involved. And so, like I said, I encourage you guys to invite them, to reach out to them, and then to give them the platform to talk to you and explain to you and speak to you on a one-on-one level the issues and the things that are important to them. And we're going to do that. Like, hopefully I get to do this college tour around the state if Kibby gives me permission. We'll see. Hopefully I didn't run up his rental car bill too much this week until let me come back. But, yeah, that's a huge part of it. And, we have to remember, like I said a minute ago, it's all about listening and finding out what's important to other people and making sure that becomes part of our outreach and our value systems. And that's the most important thing we find with younger voters. And we do, like I said, our staff is really young, so we're really lucky on that aspect. They spread out all over and do youth outreach. It's pretty fun. Any other question?
Whitney, tell them how to access Freedom Connector.
Okay, so it's actually just freedomconnector.org. And so you can go to Freedom Connector. You can use Freedom Connector without registering. So it's freedomconnector.org. And if you go to freedomworks.org, there's a Freedom Connector link. But you're welcome, if you just want to go and find out who else in your area cares about something, you do not have to sign up. You can just go look at the map and try to figure out what groups are having meetings. If you want to interact with anyone, you have to sign up because we don't want to give everyone someone's personal data, right? So you have to interact and get permission to connect with people. I might be too close to that, I don't know. No, technology has not been my friend this week, so don't be surprised if things explodes and starts like smoking. Yeah. I definitely can't promise. She wants to know how do we know that the left is not using our tools. The reality is we should be using theirs too. So I can't promise that they're not using ours, and I encourage you to visit their sites and use theirs. Find out who they are and where they're having meetings, because those are great opportunities to stand outside and pass out our information and to see what they're up to and what their talking points and their messages are. So yeah, they're probably using our stuff. We should use the same strategy back at them. You might be a little disgusted by what you see, right? But it's good to go. It's good to check out what they're up to.
The problem I see is that this group is conservative. We don't like to give our money up. That's what makes us conservative. What you're battling, well, that's the truth of it.
That's very true.
The problem that you're battling is people that are unionized, that have to give their money to the unions, and that's where they're getting that $10 million from.
Yeah, I mean, that $10 million straight comes from Mr. Massa, but there is a lot of union money and different things that'll help fund that around Texas. So we've got to figure out better ways to beat them. I mean, we can't keep focusing on what they do and how they do it. We have to focus on how we do it better. So we take what we learn from them, and we figure out ways to kick their tails, because we can. I'm fully confident that we can beat this. But it's going to take us saying, okay, so we got this big whiteboard with all the things that they're doing, but what are we going to do? And how are we going to figure out a way to beat them at their own game? And if that means that we all have to follow Wendy's bus and her sneakers around and knock on every door after she knocks on it, maybe we give up our weekends for a while. But
what color?
Or are her sneakers? I think her sneakers, were they pink, right?
Something like that.
I think they were, yeah.
I had a question about, I know you talk a lot about the fiscally conservative aspect of everything, and I was just wondering if FreedomWorks ever compromises conservative social issues in order to just get the fiscal conservatism.
So our board and our charter only allows us publicly to deal with fiscal issues, so economic freedom issues, civil liberties issues. So we work a lot with civil liberties, economic freedom, school issues, we're by the Common Core. But we work with Heritage Action, we work with American Majority, we work with a lot of other organizations and groups nationwide that do work in the social issues. And we encourage everyone, I mean, this can't just be us in FreedomWorks, right? This has to be every group, every organization, everyone coming together on the ground in Texas, bringing all of the issues that are important to us together. We can't fight this on our own, it's gonna take everybody. So they're equally as important to me personally, but as an organization, we just deal in the fiscal issues. But we have great partners that do the other side.
Do you have any recommendations for how to reach a religious audience in churches and so forth?
Pastoral outreach is really important. We work really closely with Cruz, and like I said, Dale Bryant. Dale Bryant spends a lot of time in churches. He's actually headed to Harris County to do some work in some churches in Houston. And that's an important opportunity for all of us. But Raphael is working with us in CL, and we're going to continue that outreach campaign. And you guys, honestly, if you have a church you want one of them to come and speak at, or if you have suggestions, send them my way. A lot of times we don't know. We don't know that they're welcome somewhere. We don't know that they're invited somewhere. And that's something that we're more than willing to do, is send them out here to speak.
And also on that note, do y'all have any list of guidelines on how to... Sorry, I'm up here in the sound.
I think the voice of God is talking to me in this church.
The voice from above.
That's right.
Do you have any guidelines on how to reach into churches and so forth without violating the church's tax-exempt, non-political rules?
That's a great question. So I'm not the expert on this. I wish I could tell you I was, but I think freedom is a non-political message, right? The concept of freedom. And so I know that's what CL always says when he goes into churches, is that, that's the message that he says he's going to bring. But I'll ask him, actually. I'll ask him specifically how he gets around, and ask Raphael how they get around those rules. And JoAnn may know the answer.
Yeah, well, Whitney, I will tell you that I saw and spent quite some time with Raphael Tuesday at the Heritage Action event. And Raphael, you all need to know this. There are a lot of important things going on. Raphael right now is being asked to speak and help organize pastor conferences all over the United States. And Raphael has some significant speaking engagements and pastoral conferences in the state of Texas. His number one goal is to set churches free so that they understand you don't have to obey that. And Dan Cummins, Pastor Cummins from Bridlewood right here in Tyler and the Bullard area is doing the same thing. And there's a network of pastors that are going around. And they're saying, you know, there are things that we absolutely can speak about, and we're going to do it. And you've probably heard of them. They have Pulpit Freedom Sunday. They're preaching messages that are what their folks need to hear, and they're sending them to the IRS and saying, go ahead and sue me. So that's what we need to encourage, and I will tell you, that's what they're doing. And CL is going to be helping with that. Another thing to encourage you guys, because I'm hoping that I'm going to see Brandon come through. So we've got the building to 8:30. So if we end this early, Brandon's going to talk to you. He's in a big meeting with his editors right now online. So I want you to be encouraged, because for the first time, to answer Lori's question about social issues, for the first time in the 21 years I've been an activist in Texas, we had, those of us who do a lot of work on the Texas budget, a lot of work on fiscal policy and tax policy, have had what I consider to be the only true pro-life group in Texas come to us and say, we know that we need to work with you. And so for the first time, we're going to have a group of statewide leaders, conservative leaders, that are going to tour the state. And we're going to have people with the traditional values group, the pro-life group, those of us like me that are both a fiscal and a social conservative, and the fiscal conservatives are all going to come together. And we are targeting areas of the state of Texas where a state representative or a state senator needs to be fired. And our sole purpose is to have meetings like this so that we all get up and we talk about something, about the records, the voting records, because what has happened in the state of Texas is that the liberal Republicans have figured you out. They know that if they have an A+ rating from the NRA, Gun Owners of America, Texas State Rifle Association, and they have an A+ from a pro-life group, then guess what? They've got to be conservative, right? Not true. Some of those guys down there are the biggest liberals you've ever seen, and they've got their hands on your wallet. And they'll spend every dime. They've spent every dime of our state surplus, and now they're into the rainy day fund. So I'm just telling you to be encouraged, because for the first time, we actually have pro-life folks. In fact, I'll just go ahead and say, Elizabeth Graham said to me, JoAnn, I know that there are people in the state legislature that are not a problem for us, but they're a real pain in the neck to you, and you want to see them fired. I said, that's right, Elizabeth. So we're going to work through a process where when they vet candidates, on some of them, they're going to wait to make an endorsement until the fiscal side gets discussed, okay? Because I'm going to tell you that whole episode, since we got a little time here, let me just tell you something right now. The Democrats were not solely responsible for that horrible spectacle in Austin. I don't want to make this shriek in everybody's ear. The spectacle in Austin when we had Occupy Wall Street people and the hard left and invade our Capitol. If our Republicans had done what they were supposed to do, that never would have happened. First of all, and I'm just going to say say it to you straight, because that's what I have to do. The state GOP leadership told the male state representatives and senators there will be no man carrying any pro-life legislation to the floor. Will not happen, because the Democrats have convinced all the women in Texas that we have a war on women. So that's that's caving to the left. So then any pro-life bills that were filed got held up in the State Affairs Committee, and there's a Republican, Byron Cook, who held them up in committee. Okay? And so they played this game during the legislative session. So then when we get to a special session, everybody's really concerned about what their legacy is going to be. Are you hearing what I'm saying? What my legacy is going to be. And gee, now we've got pro-life groups that are wanting to get this passed. So maybe we better put this on the special session. Then we've got some statewide leaders that are asleep at the switch, doing a lot of other things. In a special session, which only lasts 30 days by law, if you wait 2 weeks into a session and put a pro-life bill on the call for the special session, you are a week away from being in striking distance of a filibuster. You can read it like a map. We saw that it was going to happen. There were lots of ways that could have been avoided. What I am saying to you all tonight, that's a long way to say, you can't believe everything you see and you hear. Politicians do things for selfish reasons. They aren't all selfish, but I will tell you, that disaster down there, you can't blame that disaster solely on the lady with the pink sneakers and the Democrats. I'm just telling you straight out. If you want to watch the archives of the Senate, of when everything fell apart with the Senate and that whole gallery got out of control, sitting at home, I could see it unfolding. And it was a simple thing. Tell all the senators to come to the dais so that when they vote, you can hear them. Problem solved. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. So I want y'all to be encouraged, because I see statewide leaders coming together and actually trying to have a cohesive plan instead of everybody trying to do their own thing. And that's what we have to do. We have to work together. We don't have to agree on every issue to agree that we need to beat Jeremy Byrd and the people that are trying to take over Texas. So, okay, yes. Adriana, yes ma'am, let me give you the microphone.
No, it's a statement about the churches. I've been going to black churches for over 6 years. But I not only go to the black churches, I go to all the churches in all denominations, because I know it's going to take us all coming together. But the biggest thing about black people in Texas is that they're all afraid, and they're listening to what Obama says. And I've been the only one, and yes, but CL haven't been in this area going to the churches. And it's going to take some black ministers that are active to get out in the black churches, and they not just see my face. And I'm a woman, and I'm talking to me. Okay, they got a problem with us talking to them anyway and telling them what to do. So we need to make, even though we're right, and I give them proof, and I have to bring them proof, and I have asked them, why y'all asking me for proof and you don't ask Obama for proof? And the Bible said we are supposed to what? Make everyone prove. But getting back, we need some black ministers that have been active, that know, and they got to know what they're talking about, and the number and bill or whatever to give these people, because that's what I have to come to them with. But because I am a woman, they are slow to move. So I'm looking for some black pastors in East Texas to start going around with the church and giving me some help. Because without the black people, we're not going to keep Texas. because Obama is good at lying and giving trinkets to get support. And we have got to start doing this ASAP, and we have got to get out in the communities and not look for everybody else, but let's get out there. Everybody in here should be in the community. Everyone. But go with your facts and know what you're talking about when you go.
Questions? I'm coming. Yeah, get her right over here and then I'll be over there.
I'm wondering, there is a handful of conservative black politicians and pastors, eloquent speakers around the country. Is there some way to network to get those individuals together to be a force for the black population, to speak to the black people so that they can hear it from a group and not just one or two chosen ones? Is that possible? It seems like...
Whitney, what do you think? Yeah, am I still on? Hi. Can you hear me now? There. All right. Yeah, it is possible. And, a lot of them, they do know each other. And they have conferences and they have summits. But it's a great idea to have, a system to get them all connected and speak at different places. If you guys hosted something here in Tyler, I guarantee you could get Pastor Carson here, you could get CL here, you could get Pastor Broden out here. You could get a lot of those leaders out here and come up with a good strategy. So a lot of the times is they don't know where they're welcome, where they're invited, and they're seeking opportunities. There was a great meeting in Charleston, South Carolina last month that I watched online where these guys were invited and they all came together. It was beautiful, but they had to be invited by the community. So a lot of that is you guys setting up opportunities for people to come in and speak like I did today, and letting them know they're invited and welcome, because they jump at the chance and the opportunity to do that. And if you guys want contact information, I can help you with that as well, because they do know each other. And if you say to one of them, hey, can you get 4 or 5 of these guys to come talk, they'd be very happy to do it.
Well, they've come and spoken to us, but they need to go and speak to the black community.
Yep. And they're definitely working on that, I will tell you. And I would love to connect with you and help get some of that information out there as well.
Where was the other question, and while I'm traveling there? I think that we could probably get those pastors an invitation, because we've been working on building relationships in the black community here to speaking about education issues. So where's my next question?
It was me, but that was pretty much the question.
Oh, okay.
My question is in regards to the presentation you showed a little bit earlier. We saw very daunting figures in terms of the financial backing of the opposition. We also heard earlier that the opposition likes to use trinkets to attract people, and as much as we dislike that, we shouldn't discount that as a tool. Are you aware of what the financial backing is of the Come and Take It Texas program, and is there a way that we can physically build up the financial backing so that we can throw the fun tools and games out there to attract people to the cause?
Well, that's a multi-part answer. So FreedomWorks is doing Come and Take It. We don't want to take over for groups that are already existing. Our sole purpose is to support you guys. You're always welcome to help us build out our plan. I've sent JoAnn a copy, and I'm willing to email anyone a copy of what our plan looks like and what the budget is. We released an $8 million plan for Come and Take It to fight the $10 million, $11 million that Battleground Texas has. And so that's just coming from FreedomWorks, from our donors. And we have grassroots donors. Our average contribution is $35. So for FreedomWorks, we've got a lot of fundraising to do to get to that $8 million to help get our plan in action. But I will tell you that over the last month or so, I've done a lot of meetings with people, some donors here in Texas that are very encouraged by the plan. What they wanted to see from us was what we did this week, that we could actually get with grassroots Texans, get with activists, and get them excited and involved, and then they were willing to put some money behind it. So as soon as we can go back, and I can tell them that as of tonight, I've met with 1,000 Texans in a week, that should give them a really good perspective on where this movement is going. And you guys can take, and I can email you the presentation and the video and resources or stuff in the back. I'll send you whatever you need to go and spread that message statewide.
Can we get the ladies' names again? The local ladies?
Yeah,
introduce themselves to you?
Thank you.
Come on, you two. Yes, indeed.
They're being shy. You guys, give them some love.
Here's the deal, ladies. There are going to be times when I'm going to be out of town because I'm going to be a moderator for a Houston candidate debate, Lieutenant Governor, on October the 3rd. So that means part of that action week I'm going to be out of here, so that means you're it. So, look, you two, these are two wonderful ladies. I want you to introduce yourself and tell them why you're involved, why it's important to you. You can do that. Stacy.
Hi, I'm Stacy McMahan. Honestly, as far as scheduling, that's when you have JoAnn.
Microphone.
When you have JoAnn, just pretty much watch what you do. She's got it handled, and she did a really wonderful job. And why I'm involved?
What's your last name?
It's McMahan. Most of the time I'm on Twitter or Facebook, doing a lot of those. And why I'm involved is just I woke up and saw that it was an absolute mess. And my focus hasn't been so much, it's on the politics end of it, but it's also connecting East Texas with Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. So we have a voice. So it sort of feels like we're the stepchildren, of Texas. I'm trying to put us all together so not necessarily we can all work together in unison, like with this Come and Take It.
My name is Resa Clarke. Can you hear me? Okay. And I've just been a young conservative all my life since I was 18 years old. We had a mock election my senior year, and my teacher her son was the campaign manager for Kruger. Well, I didn't even know who that was, but I just thought everybody wanted to be him. So I said, well, I'll just be the other guy. So I was the only odd person out, and it took 1 year to figure out everything you needed to know about a Democrat and a Republican before this election in March. And that was your whole grade. And I'm telling you, I learned a lot as at 18 years old. So ever since then, I have just been very, very strong conservative, and have 4 children, so I don't have a lot of time, but the time I do have, I really devote to this. It's sort of my passion. And my husband owns business here, and this is what I do. So I got involved because my friend Marcella Burke in Houston suggested I get on this. I worked for Ted Cruz's campaign, and I saw how literally your hands and your mouth can win an election. We went all over everywhere, got hoarse and everything, just trying to tell people about him. So anyway, I hope the energy can really build up so that we can get some enthusiasm and some speed behind this, because that's what it's going to take. I think everybody gravitates towards energy. So if we can just get our energy up and in numbers, we'll be successful.
And I want to tell everybody that's here tonight, I want to see a show of hands. Is this the very first political, this is the first political thing you've ever attended? Anybody? Brand new? Welcome. I'm going to tell you, I tell everybody this simple thing. I said this in Fairfield this week. I've started back on my speaking tour now that the legislature's finally gone home. Praise the Lord. I told them, it's not enough to just sit at home and watch Fox News and yell at the TV and yell at your spouse, debate with your spouse, debate with your kids, listen to talk radio, and just be a great armchair conservative. We can't afford that anymore, folks. We can't. And so I tell people all the time, and some younger folks I'm trying to mentor, you don't have to do it the way I do it. You don't have to do it the way Stacy does it, or Whitney does it, or Resa does it. You just have to decide for yourself, what is it that I can do to influence people just to simply do the right thing? And see, we've got to stop being silent when we see grave abuses going on, abuse of the rule of law. I mentioned a while ago, human trafficking. I am determined this community has its head in the sand on a number of ideas. Amen. But by the time Grassroots America is done working with law enforcement and those two ladies with Refuge of Light and For the Silent, those two ministries, you will have to willingly and knowingly overlook the fact that we have human trafficking and sex slave trade going on in Smith County. You will have to have made the decision that I know it and I'm not going to do a thing about it. And you know what? Then you have to answer for it because you've been told. I'm going to tell you, I know that you guys are tired. How many people in here are just sick and tired of what you hear? I mean, it's negative and bad news all the time. Every time you turn around. I mean, it's something else with the federal government. Then I come back to town from Austin and I tell you all the dirty, rotten things that the people in Austin who say they're conservatives are really doing to you. And then you turn around at the local level and you know what? There's some surprises coming for some local officials next week. And I'm not going to spoil the fun tonight. But I'm going to tell you, if there's any place that we ought to be able to trust is local elected officials. When they do underhanded, sneaky stuff in Washington, we go, you know what? That's just what they do. And then when they do it in Austin, because they're so far removed from us, they think they can get away with it. But at the local level, you know, we need to take the Jeffersonian approach. The Jeffersonian approach is that government that is closest to you is the one that you can most impact. And we need to have a very high community standard. A very high community standard. And I know you guys are tired. I'm tired too. I'm tired of running that white F-150 Lariat pickup truck up and down the road. I am tired of that. I do. I get tired of it. But you know what? The blood of patriots, the blood of the founders of this country and of patriots and of the families of veterans cry out to us to do something. So when you get an email from us, we don't send out trivial stuff. When I send out an email blast that's informing you about the next wave of the Come and Take It campaign, your first instinct should be, I have to open this, I have to print it out if I'm going to lose it in my email. I have to print it out, I need to have it in front of me so I know what I got to do next. When I send you an email alert from Heritage Action, and it's got what's going on in Congress when they go back after this recess, and I send it out to you and I say, you may not live in Pete Sessions' district, but Pete Sessions, a Republican, is holding up the Benghazi investigation. You need to call Pete Sessions' office and you need to say, Mr. Sessions, I don't live in your district, but what you're doing is an affront to every veteran in this country. Stop it. Because if you don't, I will help somebody that's going to run against you in this primary. I will come to Dallas and I will help them get out the votes to retire you. But you have to mean it. So when we send out an email alert and I ask you to make a phone call, I'm going to tell you, when I started this 21 years ago, when you made a phone call to Washington, it cost you something. It was called long distance. Yep. And when you wanted to do research on a bill, you didn't have the internet. You had to go to the library to find it. Or you had to wait on snail mail and your elected official to send you something from Washington. Folks, we have information at our fingertips now, and we need to use it. So when I ask you to make a phone call, I'm not asking you to make a phone call because I don't have anything else to do. I'm asking you to make that phone call because when elected officials hear silence, they take it as a stamp of approval. Do you understand that? When elected officials hear nothing, they think they're doing just fine. But I can tell you from having conversations with Senator Cornyn's staff,
Bless you, my child.
we have gotten their attention. And we're going to keep getting their attention. Because you know what, as I told his staff, with all due respect, Senator Cornyn works for us, not the other way around. And so when a staffer calls me up, who's half my age, and wants to leave me a snarky little voicemail message about how they're not really happy with us talking about using heritage action and the analysis we put out, you know what I say? Delete. Because here's the deal. We have to hold them accountable for what they say. And then what they do. So when I ask you, I'm going to tell you, one of the last meetings we had when we were having, and we're going to get back to having, after that, now summer's over, we're going to have a regular calendar again. But the last time we had a meeting and I asked how many people had opened their email and had made a phone call to Austin, I have to tell you that there was about maybe 1/10 of the people held up their hand. And for a person who had been up the number of hours I had been up and had been butting my head against some of those knotheads down in Austin, that was really, got me really close to the nice JoAnn was about to disappear and the bad one was trying to jump right out of me. I'm just saying, we've got to do what we can do. If all you can do is make a phone call, let's make phone calls and make them know that you're paying attention. Yes, ma'am.
I called, maybe you can help us. I called John Cornyn's office twice yesterday. And this mailbox is full. So, and of course then the email is just a general office thing. How else do we do this? I think they're leaving it full probably.
Well, so you called the Tyler office?
No.
The Washington office. Okay. Well, then I need to give you the Tyler, his staff, his East Texas director's personal phone number. So because she works for us too. She works for us too. And she's trying to take care of her boss. But I can tell you right now what he's getting down to. He's asking 2 or 3 people that he thinks, his staff thinks are the troublemakers, and he's having little one-on-one meetings with them. So they've been after me and after me and after me for him to come to town and me to have a meeting. And I said, that's not going to make me stop talking about how you should be having a town hall meeting to hear from all your constituents. Because, you see, for me, I want you to understand this. For me, it's not about whether or not I have access. I have access to a lot of elected officials. But my responsibility is to make sure that you have the access and that we hold them accountable for giving you that access. So I said this, you know what, if the staff needs me to sit across the table from Senator Cornyn and look him in the eye and say, you are making a terrible mistake. The people across Texas are angry with you, they do not understand you, and you are out of touch. If you want me to say that to him, I can say it, but here's my criteria. There will be no photographs taken in this meeting. Because there was a group of activists, a few from Dallas, that had a meeting with him, and as soon as the meeting was over, their pictures were on his Facebook page. We're not going to be political props in Grassroots America. Let me get this one, and Adriana, I'll be right back to you. John.
JoAnn, I want to give you an uplifting message. I had an email this morning from a lady in Little Elm who is a hospice nurse. She said, I feel better this morning than I have felt in years. She said, last night I attended a rally, an anti-John Cornyn rally. 165 people had RSVP'd, so they rented a room to hold 200, and 1,000 people showed up.
I gave up on phone calls years ago because when something important comes up, their phone is always busy, the email is always full. I fax, and I have no problem.
That's good. You should do all of it. Okay, who we got? Al, and then I'll come right back up here and Linda.
A source of money can be doctors. Now, my wife's been in the hospital recently, but my business card here says I work for Jesus and the U.S. Constitution. Give it to the doctor, and boy, he opens right up. And it says in the Obama Medicare, like it does in this Agenda 21 book, all doctors will have the same price, whether he's a heart doctor or a foot doctor. And they've got a lot of money to lose. I think a well-directed letter from us mailed to them all, whether they'd probably donate a lot of money to us because they've got a lot to lose. And the other thing I was going to say is they talk about doing things. When I put out these petitions for everybody to sign, let me tell you what happens. Is I went on this first World War II veteran group that went to Washington with Brooks there a while back, and we got up there and I saw Carmen, and they gave us a tour. And he said, "Oh, are you the guy that sends those?" I said, "Well, I just do it because everybody signs it." He said, "Oh, you guys having to phone somebody or write a letter or send a telegram? You sign this and the petition goes in, and all it is something out of the newspaper that says, vote for this or against it, and we all sign it." And it goes up there and he said, "Would you like to know where your paper winds up?" And I said, "Well, I think I know where it winds up. Where do you think it is?" He said, I don't think I know. It's on top of the stack. Because our signatures, if we got 250 or 300 signatures, that's probably more signatures than all of the letters and telegrams below. Now that's my little effort of helping, is because I was always getting my single letter out, but I multiplied this by all you guys' signatures. And so when things are winding up on the desk here for signing, well, you're just not doing any good if you just don't sign them, because I get them. Last week I spent 28 hours and I sent all 432 representatives from all of the states. They're out for 5 weeks right now. I had 11 petitions. It covered everything: guns, immigration, the whole shit works. I took that many hours. I don't mind. I just put a good John Wayne movie on. I just keep some of those facts. But I'm retired. I'm 88, and I can do it. But that's very effective. And every time I talk to Louis Gorman, he said, "Oh, I get them all the time," and says it saves so much time. He said, sometimes people call and they can say in 10 words what they say in about 10 minutes. And said, "I never have to talk to you because it's a newspaper article that tells a story. But if you got to be sure and sign these petitions, like during the year we got a lot of petitions to sign. But sometimes I pick them up off the table, it's just the same, there's not that many signatures on them. So if you want to write your own letter, well, go ahead and do it, but it's so quick and easy to get it done right here as a group."
I was just going to say, I called for his office in Washington, and it was very ordinary. Then, closer? Okay, I'm sorry. I called the Washington office, and it was pretty routine. Okay, well, thank you for your call. Okay. But I called here in Tyler, and when the little girl, he said little girl, so it was a little girl, and she said, "Well, you know, Senator Cornyn likes to sleep in his own bed." Because I had asked her when was he going to do a town hall? And so then I said, "Well, did he not know how big this day was?" And that he, you know, hey, we wanted to talk to him.
This is in response to the gentleman, as one of your local surgeons here in town. I will tell you that it does not have to do, 99% of the physicians are against Obamacare here locally in Smith County. So I know personally 2 very liberal Democrat physicians, and they're so naive it's embarrassing, considering the fact they're very intelligent otherwise. It doesn't have to do with the money, because if you particularly as Medicare patients look at your explanation of benefits, you will see that the physicians' payments have gone down and down and down and down. And so really it's not about the money, it's about the loss of autonomy that we will not have the opportunity to treat our patients as we know they need to be treated. We will be told. And it has nothing to do with medical care, it has to do with power. That's all it has to do with complete and total control. So you really tell your physicians, what I would tell your physicians is we support you and what you are doing. That will be very, very helpful for physicians. We're already on board. Thanks.
Okay, do we have another question? We're going to take just a couple more. And I got a message from Brandon. He's still working on a big expose with his editors, and he may not get here. So that means you need to come to the event tomorrow so you get to see Brandon. Okay, so where?
I want to add to Margarita's comment. My husband is an internal medicine physician here in Texas. Our name is Resa. He encountered 900 patients in January. Now this is his regular load. And he tells me, I said, why are these physicians, the AMA, supporting Obamacare? And he said in Texas, and I know Margarita will identify with this, more physicians belong to the NRA than they do the AMA. The AMA is nothing but eggheads practicing medicine in the universities. They're not down in the trenches. So most of you, I think, have a concept that the doctors aren't. We're on board. I'm here speaking for my husband because he's too damn tired to be here.
We're probably going to have to wind up now, so let me just tell you, you're sitting here and you're going, okay, JoAnn, we appreciate all the things that you guys said. We got to see the real Whitney Neal that we normally only see on Fox News. And so, what do? If you are not a member of Grassroots America, you should be. If you, now we've got some other people here now. Stacy is with the We the People of Longview group. And so what you need to do is you need to make sure you get our email alerts, because I don't send you jokes and stories. I send you things you need to know and then action steps. Make sure you go by the FreedomWorks table back there and get the materials you need. Signing up for our email alerts and my business cards are over there on the table. Signing up for those alerts means you know what's going on. So when we get ready to roll out what the October event will be, you will know it. But we have to take you being here and being interested in going to the very next training, and we'll have the next training pretty soon where it's a hands-on deal, where we teach you how to go door to door. We teach you how to engage people. We're going to have a lot of that, and we need to have you come back for that. It's a commitment, and once you know how to do it, then you can teach other people how to do it, see? And it's not hard once you get started.
Do you mind if I get on that? JoAnn, when she was saying that I'm with We the People, I'm a member. I just wanted to do a little clarification. I'm a member of We the People. That's mainly Cindy Schwartz and her husband. Actually, it is Cindy Schwartz and her husband. Cindy, please stand up.
Yes, Cindy. I didn't even see you, Cindy. I'm sorry.
Cindy and Mike Schwartz from Ray County. A lot of things that Cindy sends out, she gets from a lot of different people, as well as JoAnn. So her group will make sure that those individuals are contacted. If you need to get a hold of me, you can either one of these ladies, or on Facebook, it's Stace, STACEIN, Texas, and that's also on Facebook. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank everybody. Thank you for being here tonight, for taking on Friday night. And I'm sorry you didn't get to see Brandon, but as I said, he's working on a big story with the editors of Breitbart.com, so you need to be watching